If you've ever stood in a room full of your own family and still felt like a stranger. If you've ever been excluded, not with words, but with silence, then my story might sound painfully familiar. My name is Rachel Carter. I'm 34, and if you had told me just a few months ago that my name would be spoken proudly during my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, not to shame me, but to honor me, I would have laughed, or cried. Probably both, because for over 2 decades, I was the one they forgot. Not loudly, not cruelly, just quietly, like I was wallpaper in their perfect family picture. But sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you regret overlooking the most. If this story already has your heart tugging just a little, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment below if you've ever felt unseen in your own family. And subscribe to the channel if you want more true-to-life stories like this one. Your support helps us bring these voices forward, voices that deserve to be heard. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I can't remember the last time I walked into a family gathering and didn't feel like a misplaced puzzle piece. You know that strange pause? The one right after someone says, "Oh, Rachel, I didn't realize you were coming." That pause is longer than a breath, shorter than a full sentence, but loud enough to echo in your ribs. Growing up, I was never the rebel or the black sheep. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't wild. I was just different. Where my stepsister Emily sparkled, I observed. Where she laughed loudly, I took notes. She performed, I disappeared. My mother, Mary Ann, once told me gently, "Not everyone was born to shine in public, sweetie," as if that was kindness. As if that explained why my science fair trophy collected dust in a garage box while Emily's half-baked macaroni art hung in the living room for years. Thomas, my stepfather, made it worse without even trying. He married my mom when I was 7 and adopted Emily like she was royalty. He once joked at Thanksgiving. One daughter lights up a room, the other turns the lights off and reads in the dark. Everyone laughed. So I laughed too. That's how it always went. I tried to belong. Every birthday, I brought handmade cards. Every holiday, I showed up with desserts no one touched. Every family photo, I smiled like I was happy to be in the back row. But no matter how hard I tried, I was never invited in, not really. It started small. They forgot to tell me about Sunday brunches, group chats without me, reunions where I only found out through Instagram posts. But nothing stung like Emily's wedding. She called me weeks before the big day. "Hey Rach," she chirped. "So, about the wedding, it's going to be really formal. Kind of high profile. Not really your thing." That's how she said it. Not "you're not invited, but you wouldn't want to be there, right?" Then came the kicker. "I just don't want you to feel out of place." You know? Like I had ever been allowed in place. I didn't cry. Didn't argue. Didn't even ask why. But the silence afterward? It stayed with me for days. It sat at the bottom of my stomach like wet cement. My mom said, "It's her big day. Let her have it how she wants." Thomas just muttered, "You'd probably hate it anyway." And maybe I would have. But it wasn't about the dress or the playlist. It was about belonging. 2 years later, Emily got engaged again. And this time, the news hit differently. Because the first time she didn't want me there. This time, she didn't even bother telling me. I saw the announcement on a skincare brand's sponsored post. "Congratulations to our ambassador, Emily Layton, on her engagement to Logan Bennett." Her smile was perfect. Her dress pastel blue. And beside her stood a man I didn't know yet. But who, soon, would change everything. The moment I saw his name, something strange tugged at me. A kind of curiosity. An invisible thread pulling tight. I couldn't have known then that fate was about to walk me straight into an aisle I wasn't invited to. But that meeting didn't happen in a chapel. It happened next to the Honeycrisp apples at Fred Meyer. It happened on a random Thursday afternoon. I was in Fred Meyer, holding a bruised avocado in one hand and silently judging the $5.99 price tag. When I turned the corner into the produce section, and crashed into someone. Literally. Apples went flying. I apologized instinctively. And then I looked up. He was tall, late 30s maybe, Wore a navy hoodie and an easy smile. "You okay?" he asked, crouching down to pick up apples with me. I was aiming for Olympic-level cart control. I said dryly. He laughed. "Then I'm honored to be part of your training montage." It was only when we both stood up that I caught his name, on a loyalty card he handed the cashier moments later. Logan Bennett. I blinked. My sister's fiancé. The one from the skincare ad. The man I wasn't supposed to know existed. We walked out at the same time. I thought maybe that was it. Just a weird coincidence. But he slowed beside me and said, "You're Rachel, right?" I turned to face him fully. "Yes. How do you know that?" He gave a sheepish shrug. "I've seen a few photos. Family walls, old holiday albums. You were never introduced. But, you were there." I raised an eyebrow. "Not for long." He hesitated. "Yeah, I noticed." There was a beat of silence. Then he added, "I ended the engagement." It hit me like a slap I hadn't braced for. "What?" Logan stuffed his hands in his pockets. Eyes focused on the ground. "It wasn't working," he said simply. "She's good at appearances." But everything felt performative, polished on the outside, hollow in the center. I didn't know what to say. He looked at me again. "You seem real, even now." Standing in a parking lot holding bruised apples. A laugh slipped out of me, unexpected. Sharp. Almost bitter. "Yeah," I said. "That's me. Always the unscripted extra." He smiled. "Maybe the extras are the only ones who see what's really happening." We parted ways that day with nothing more than a nod. But something about that moment stayed with me. Not because he left her. But because he saw me, without needing a spotlight to do it. Weeks passed. Then one day, Logan reached out. A simple email. "Would love to hear your thoughts sometime, on books, life, or why grocery store apples are always disappointing." I met him for coffee. Once. Then twice. Then again. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was calm. And kind. And unfamiliar in a way that made me nervous. One evening, after our third meet-up, Logan told me about a small dinner he was hosting. "It's not a wedding thing," he said quickly. "It's a thank you dinner. For a nonprofit I'm starting. Low-key. Just a few people who've inspired me." I frowned. "Why me?" He looked me straight in the eyes. "Because watching you exist quietly, with dignity, when your own family forgot you, reminded me what strength actually looks like." I agreed to go. Not for him. Not to prove anything. But because part of me wondered what it might feel like to be in a room, and not feel like an accident. The night of the dinner. I wore black. Not to fade in, just to feel solid, present. The room was filled with soft lighting, mismatched chairs, and clinking glasses. No one was showing off. No one asked me who I was in relation to someone else. When Logan stood up to give a toast, I expected the usual list of donors, mentors, friends. But instead, he started with me. "There's someone in this room," he said, "who showed me that quiet resilience is stronger than any spotlight." He paused, looked at me, and said, "Rachel Carter, this project wouldn't exist without you." I froze. And for a long second, the air felt impossibly still. People turned to look, not with suspicion, but with curiosity, respect, warmth. I didn't cry. But my fingers tightened slightly around my wineglass, like I was anchoring myself to the table I'd never been offered before. After the toast, a woman approached me, older, kind eyes, silver hair. "You're that Rachel," she said softly, "the one they always left out." I blinked. "How do you know that?" She smiled. "My niece is Emily's old roommate. She told me stories. But now I get to see you rewrite your own." And just like that, I realized this dinner wasn't a performance. It was a quiet reckoning. The next morning, someone posted a short clip from Logan's toast online. Nothing flashy, just a 1-minute video titled, "She was forgotten by her own family, until this happened." I didn't expect it to do numbers. But by noon, it had over 30,000 views. And by nightfall, my inbox was full of strangers saying they finally felt seen. The video was just over a minute long. Grainy footage, dim lighting, Logan raising a glass. My name, spoken clearly. A simple line. She reminded me that quiet strength is still strength. No tears, no drama, but within 24 hours, it had 100,000 views. By the end of the week, it had hit 1 million. I didn't understand what was happening at first. I thought maybe it would pass. Just another moment swallowed up by the internet's endless appetite for sentiment. But then the messages started coming. I'm the Rachel in my family, too. I've never felt seen until I watched that clip. Can you share more about your story? I wasn't used to being visible. Not like this. Not for the right reasons. At first, I didn't reply. I let the messages sit in my inbox like unopened letters to a stranger. Because deep down, I still felt like an imposter. Like maybe I didn't deserve this attention. Like maybe I was the problem all along. Like they said. But the messages kept coming. And something inside me whispered. They're not clapping for a performance. They're reaching for a hand. So I reached back. I wrote one post. One essay. One small truth I'd never said out loud before. I titled it, When Your Family's Love Has Conditions. I posted it quietly. No hashtags. No promo. And within 48 hours, it went viral. Medium featured it on their homepage. A trauma-informed therapist reshared it on TikTok. It was translated into 5 languages by volunteers I'd never met. More emails. More comments. You're putting words to wounds I've never been able to name. Can I quote this in my therapy session? My mom saw this and cried. And just like that, Rachel Carter was no longer just a name whispered behind family doors. She was someone people listened to. And not everyone was happy about that. One morning, I got a text from my mother. What is all this? Emily showed me that blog. Are you trying to humiliate us? Then another. Whatever happened in the past. You have no right to air dirty laundry for strangers. I stared at the screen. My coffee growing cold in my hand. Not a single sentence said. I'm sorry. Only. You're embarrassing us. Then came the email. From Emily. I don't appreciate being portrayed as the villain in your little healing journey. Maybe you were always just jealous. Maybe that's the real story. I didn't reply. Because I was starting to understand. People who benefit from your silence will always call your truth drama. But I also knew I had to protect myself. So I forwarded both messages to Grace, my former student turned attorney. She read them and texted back one word. Documented. Meanwhile, the ripple kept growing. A local paper picked up the story. Then a podcast host. Then a small publisher reached out asking if I'd ever consider turning my essays into a book. I felt like I was standing in the middle of a current that was finally carrying me forward, instead of pulling me under. And yet, the most meaningful moment came in a cafe. I was sipping black tea, editing a blog draft on my laptop, when a teenage girl came up to me, trembling. Are you, Rachel Carter? I nodded. She bit her lip. My mom said I was ungrateful for going low contact with my dad. But then she read your article and, she apologized. Her voice cracked. She said she didn't realize it was survival. I didn't know what to say. So I just stood up and hugged her. That night, I opened my laptop and wrote the phrase that had been circling in my head all day. If love demands silence, it's not love, it's control. I hit post, closed my eyes, breathed deep. The next morning, I woke to an unexpected email. Subject line. Let's take this national. It was from Jordan West Capital, a social impact fund. They had been quietly watching the project grow. We believe in what you're building. And we'd like to help expand it. My heart pounded. This wasn't a personal victory anymore. This was something much bigger than me. And I knew right then. This wasn't just my healing. It was the beginning of a new kind of family. One made from choice. From fire. From truth. The email sat open on my screen for almost an hour. Subject. Let's take this national. It wasn't a scam. It wasn't a vague PR pitch. It was a real, detailed offer from Jordan West Capital, a well-known social impact firm. They wanted to help scale the Chosen Family Project across the country. Support groups, trauma-informed care hubs, microgrants for housing, scholarships, and legal aid for estranged adults. And they were offering something I never thought I'd see attached to my name. $2 million in mission-aligned funding. I should have been thrilled. But all I felt was a deep, unexpected wave of unease. I forwarded the proposal to Logan and Grace. Logan called first. "I'm proud of you," he said gently, "but I know that voice in your head. The one whispering, what if they twist this into something it was never meant to be?" I replied, "Exactly," he said. Grace was more direct. "Vet everything. Read every clause. And remember, impact doesn't mean compromise." I agreed to meet the team in person. We sat around a long marble table in a glass-walled conference room in downtown Portland. I wore black again, still my armor of choice. The woman leading the discussion was Avery Layden, strategic director. Brilliant, polished, and kind in a way that was undeniably professional. "We believe in your message," she said. "People need this space. They're starving for it. We want to fund growth in 12 cities. And long-term, we see potential for even more." Then came the catch. In return, we asked to appoint 2 board members and participate in branding decisions. It wasn't hostile. It was standard, expected, reasonable, in corporate terms. But something in me recoiled. After the meeting, I wandered the waterfront alone. The wind off the Willamette was cold. But I welcomed it. It helped me think clearly. I sat on a bench and replayed the last year in my mind. I saw a younger version of me, standing awkwardly in the corner of Emily's engagement party. I saw bruised apples, black coffee, late-night blog posts written with trembling hands. I saw strangers crying in retreat circles. People building found families from the ashes. And I realized, I hadn't built the chosen family project to be safe. I built it to be true. The next day, I emailed Avery. "I'm honored by the offer. But I'm going to pursue a community-led funding model. Slowly, intentionally, without giving up editorial control." She wrote back quickly. "We understand. If the door ever reopens, we'll be here." And somehow, that was the moment I felt most powerful. Not when I was offered $2 million. But when I knew I didn't have to say yes to be valid. I posted about the decision on our community page. "We're building this together. One voice, one story at a time. Brick by brick, heart by heart." Within 24 hours, we raised $42 in small donations. People sent messages with their $10, $25, $50 gifts. This project helped me leave my abusive father. Now I want to help someone else. I used to think family meant pain. Now it means possibility. With that money, we launched our first physical chapter, a cozy, one-room space in Portland. Nothing fancy. Just a couch, some books, warm lights, and people who knew how to listen without fixing. We called it the Hearth. And people came. They didn't ask for credentials. They didn't wear matching shirts. They showed up because they needed belonging without performance. Of course, not everyone was happy. A few weeks later, I got a letter. The return address, my mother. Inside, a church bulletin, a folded copy of a printout of one of my blog posts, with red pen circling phrases she disagreed with. And a sticky note, written in familiar script. "Do you have to keep making us the villains?" I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I was busy helping a 19-year-old girl write her first college application after being kicked out by her parents. Because I was helping a woman in her 60s reconnect with her estranged son, on new, mutual terms. Because I had finally learned the truth. Family isn't built from blood. It's built from choice, consistency, and respect. One night, Logan found me on the porch, staring at the sky. "You ever think about how far you've come?" he asked. I smiled. "I think about how far we've all come." Then I turned to him. "Blood might carry history, but it doesn't get to define the future." It came in the mail. No dramatic return address. No scent of nostalgia. Just a plain envelope, cream-colored, tucked between a flyer for dental cleanings and a utility bill. My name was written neatly on the front, Rachel Carter. No miss. No title. Just me. I opened it slowly, expecting a thank you note from someone in the community. Instead, it was a letter, handwritten, careful script, and at the bottom, a name I hadn't heard in 28 years. Daniel Green. Your father. I froze. For years, He was just a name on a birth certificate. A ghost referenced in arguments. The he left us that hovered over every childhood memory like a smudge on glass. My mother always said, he walked out, didn't fight for you, didn't ask questions. So I stopped asking. 2. I accepted the silence as proof that I wasn't worth the effort. And now, here he was, breaking it. The letter wasn't long. Rachel, if you're reading this, thank you. I've thought of writing it 100 times. But shame got in the way. Your mother made it clear I wasn't welcome. That I wouldn't be good for you. And back then, I believed her. But I've followed your words. Your project. Your voice. And I just wanted you to know, I'm proud of who you've become. Even if I had nothing to do with it. At the bottom, he'd written, if you'd ever want to talk. Here's my number. If not, I'll understand. Either way, I see you. I reread it 3 times that night. Didn't cry. Didn't call. Didn't know what to feel. Logan sat beside me in bed. Reading quietly. Waiting. Finally, I said. He didn't ask for anything. Logan looked up. That might be the most honest thing he's ever done. A week passed. Then 2. I kept the letter in a drawer next to a childhood photo I never showed anyone. Then one Sunday, I picked up the phone and dialed. It rang 3 times. Hello? His voice was older, rough, uncertain. This is Rachel Carter, I said, quiet but steady. There was a pause. Then, I hoped someday you might call. We talked for 36 minutes. Not about the past, not directly. He didn't ask to be called Dad. He didn't offer explanations wrapped in tears. He asked about my work. Told me he'd been sober for 14 years. Said he lived in a small town near the Oregon border and liked fixing old bicycles. It wasn't a reunion. It wasn't redemption. It was a beginning. Small, strange, fragile. The next time we spoke, I told him about the Chosen Family Project. He asked if he could come visit. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. 3 weeks later, he came to one of our open sessions. He sat in the back. Said nothing. Just listened. At the end, as people stood up to share final thoughts, he raised his hand. I'm not part of this community, he said slowly, but I watched my daughter build it. And, I just want to say, I'm honored she lets me be here at all. I didn't cry then, either, but my hands trembled, because for the first time in my life, someone who left also showed up to witness the life I made without them. Later that night, we sat on a bench outside the hearth. I looked at him and asked what I'd been too scared to ask for years. Why didn't you fight harder for me? He didn't give me a story. He gave me the only thing that mattered now. I didn't believe I deserved to. He paused. But I was wrong. And I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. I didn't hug him. But I didn't walk away either. I just said, you're here now. That's more than most. We talk sometimes. Not like father and daughter. More like 2 people meeting halfway through life and trying to respect the space between them. He asks questions. Listens. Doesn't try to rewrite the past. And that's enough. A few days ago, he mailed me a birthday card. No message inside. Just a note on the back. Whatever you decide to call me, I'll answer. But you can also just call when you need me. I put it next to a photo from our last retreat. In it, I'm standing between 2 women who met in our online forums and now co-lead their own regional chapter. They call themselves sisters. Not because of blood, but because they chose each other. And maybe that's what this entire journey has been about. Not replacing people, but redefining proximity. Who shows up? Who listens? Who learns? Who stays? Who holds space for the person you've become? Even if they missed all the versions before. When I was a child, I used to think home meant where the family photos were hung. Even if I wasn't in most of them. Now, I know better. Home isn't a location. It's the space between people who don't flinch when you speak your truth. The Hearth, the first physical chapter of the Chosen Family Project, opened on a rainy Saturday morning. The room smelled like fresh coffee and newly unpacked books. It wasn't fancy. Just 2 couches, a box of tissues, shelves of paperbacks, and a laminated sign on the wall. You are safe here. You are seen here. You don't need to be fixed to be welcome. The door didn't have a buzzer. But people came. A woman in her 40s who hadn't spoken to her mother in 12 years. A 22-year-old college student who cried quietly through the entire first hour. A divorced father who said, "I don't even know if I belong here. But I needed to sit somewhere that didn't feel like judgment." That night, Logan sat beside me on the porch outside. "You did this," he said. I shook my head. "No, we did." He took my hand. "So what's next?" I didn't have an answer yet. But the universe did. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Avery Layden at Jordan West Capital, the same strategic firm that had offered funding months earlier. This time, the message was different. "We've been following your expansion. The hearth is exactly what this country needs more of. We're still here, and we want to talk again, on your terms." I stared at the screen. Heart pounding. I remembered the first offer. $2 million. Full nationwide launch. But with it, board seats. Creative control. The slow dilution of what had made this movement real. Still, the numbers were hard to ignore. We had 30,000 members now. Demand was growing faster than we could handle. People were emailing from Kentucky, New Mexico, Minnesota. "When is the hearth coming here?" I met Avery for coffee. She looked polished as ever. But softer this time, less rehearsed. "I understand your concerns," she said. "And we're not here to take over." She slid a simple one-sheet proposal across the table. At the top, community-led growth model, with flexible funding plus no board appointments. I scanned it, waiting for the hidden clause. There wasn't one. Just this. "Full operational control remains with you. We provide funding, logistical support, and legal infrastructure. You decide where, when, and how fast to grow." It was everything I had once dreamed of. And yet, part of me still hesitated. I thought about the girl who wrote blog posts by candlelight in a freezing apartment. The one who was left out of birthdays, weddings, group chats. The one who had finally found her voice. Would that girl feel safe handing part of her dream to anyone, even someone who promised not to change it? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I posted a poll inside the community. Simple question. If we had a chance to expand, faster, broader, with help, would you want that? Even if it meant working with outside partners, who don't control us? Thousands voted. But one comment stood out most. "I'd love to walk into a hearth near me. But I'd rather wait 5 years for something authentic than watch it become a brand in 6 months." That night, I wrote Avery a reply. "I'm grateful, but we'll grow slower, on our own. Community funded, built with scars, not strategy decks." She replied within an hour. "We respect your decision. If you ever need scaffolding, not a ceiling, you know where to find us." And that, I realized, was the difference. So we launched a campaign. Not flashy, no celebrities, just a message. "Help us build the next hearth." The goal was modest, $100. We raised $132 in 9 days. No corporate backers. Just teachers, nurses, baristas, artists. People who knew what it meant to start over from zero. By spring, we opened 3 more hearths, in Atlanta, Des Moines, and Tucson. Each one different, each one familiar. No plaques, no founders' walls. Just warmth, and space to breathe. One evening, at the Atlanta location, a woman stopped me after a peer group session. She said, "You don't know this, but I used to be a social worker. I burned out. Too much sadness. Too little change." She pointed to the room behind her. "But this is what I always hoped healing would look like." When I got back to Portland, Logan was waiting on the porch. He held out a small keychain. It had a tiny metal house on it. I figured we could use a second front door. He said. I smiled. "Is it ours?" He nodded. "Not a proposal. Not a contract. Just a promise. You can always come home here. And if you ever outgrow it, we'll build again." And that's when I knew. Home isn't the place you started in. It's the space you make. When you finally feel safe enough to stop apologizing for your truth. The invitation came in a thick envelope with gold trim. Dayline, the most watched morning show in the country, was producing a segment called "Is Family Ever Truly Chosen?" A producer named Carla wrote, "We've followed your work for months. The Chosen Family Project has become a national conversation. We'd love to have you on to represent the voice of estranged adults." I reread it 3 times. And then saw the second line. "We've also invited other guests for balance. One will be someone from your past." I didn't need a psychic to guess who. I showed the email to Logan that night. He read it, then looked up. "You don't have to do this," he said. I nodded. "I know. But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for the girl who still thinks she has to keep swallowing the hurt just to stay in the room." The studio was colder than I expected. The host was warm, practiced, camera perfect. The panel was split, 2 on each side. And yes, there she was. Emily, sitting across from me in a pastel blazer. Her smile taut and ready for headlines. She hadn't changed much. Still polished, still poised. But her eyes, they didn't hold contempt this time. They held calculation. The segment began with a monologue about the rising trend of family estrangement. Then came the first question to me. "Rachel, you created a movement based on walking away. What do you say to those who feel that cutting off family is giving up?" I took a breath, steadying myself in the quiet. I didn't walk away out of anger. I walked away to survive. And then I stayed away to grow. A hush fell over the studio. We don't celebrate distance. We mourn what we tried to fix. But sometimes, survival looks like silence. Emily jumped in. "But isn't forgiveness part of healing? Don't we owe our families some grace?" I turned to her. I gave more grace than anyone ever noticed. Forgiveness is real, but it doesn't always lead to reunion. Sometimes it leads to acceptance, that they may never change. And I no longer need them to. She flinched slightly, but recovered quickly. "You're weaponizing victimhood," she said. "Everyone has hard childhoods. That doesn't make cutting people off heroic." I smiled gently. "I don't want to be a hero. I just want to tell the truth. And help others know that they're not monsters for protecting themselves." The host asked the final question. "If your mother or sister reached out tomorrow and asked to rebuild, what would you say?" I looked directly at the camera. I'd say, "I hope you're healing. But I'm not a door waiting to be knocked on. I'm a life being lived." The segment aired 2 days later. Clips flooded the internet. She didn't argue. She just stood in her story. That quote, "I'm not a door waiting to be knocked on." That hit me like a truck. This is how you reclaim a narrative without burning the world down. But not all reactions were kind. Some called me bitter, cold, unforgiving. Some praised Emily for keeping it civil. Others said we were both attention seekers. I didn't respond. Because I'd finally learned. Not every fire needs fuel. A week later, I got a letter. Again, no signature. But I knew the handwriting. "You seemed calm, strong, unshakable. I don't know if I'll ever understand your story. But I see now, you've made something beautiful out of everything we tried to bury." It was folded around a photo. Me and my mother. I was 6. We were holding sparklers. I didn't remember the moment. But I remembered how much I wanted it to mean something. Now, it did. Not because it was proof we were whole. But because it showed where I came from, and how far I'd traveled. At the next Chosen Family retreat, I told the story on stage. Not to make anyone the villain. But to remind everyone in that tent that fire doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it forges things that can't be broken again. Like boundaries. Like voice. Like peace. And in the back row of the tent, my father sat beside a woman he'd been dating, eyes bright. Clapping quietly. Next to him, a teenager who'd driven 3 hours from Spokane. Just to sit in a room where no one rolled their eyes when she cried. And behind her, Logan, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like I was the only light in the room. This wasn't the ending I once begged for. It was the freedom I never knew I could choose. People ask me sometimes, when did it finally get better? I never know how to answer. Because better didn't arrive like a sunrise. It came in pieces. In deep breaths. In unlearning. And in choosing, over and over again, not to go back. It's been almost 3 years since I posted that first blog. Since I found myself crying alone after Emily's engagement party. Since I stood in a room and said, "I'm not the mistake, the silence is. Now, I live in a house with wide windows and uneven floors. There's always tea on the stove. A cat named Max curled up in the sun. A pile of books we never finish. A man beside me who never asked me to shrink. Logan and I didn't get married. We didn't need to. What we built didn't need paperwork. It needed presence. It needed truth. It needed patience. The Chosen Family Project has grown. We now have 19 hearth spaces across the country. Each one different. Each one stitched together by volunteers who once thought they were alone in the world. We've had Christmas dinners with strangers who call each other sister and mean it. Retreats where grown men weep without shame. Letters from people saying, I thought I was broken. Now I know I'm just healing. We've had fights, too. Misunderstandings. Mistakes. Because that's what real community looks like. But every time, we come back. We sit in the fire. And we choose to stay. One afternoon, I stood in the back of a hearth session in Cleveland. A girl, maybe 17, spoke. Voice shaking. I don't know who I am outside of trying to earn my mom's love. No one interrupted her. No one offered a solution. We just sat with her. In the ache. In the courage. Later, I slipped her a note. It said, you are not hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who made you believe it had to be earned. She cried. I did too. I still get letters from Emily sometimes. Not apologies. Not attacks. Just fragments. A forwarded article. A photo of our childhood backyard. One postcard that simply read, it didn't have to be this way. But I see now why it was. I never wrote back. Not because I'm angry. Because I'm done explaining my healing to people who still think it's a rebellion. Last month, we held a gathering in Portland. I stood in the center of a circle, holding a candle. Everyone else had one too. We passed the flame, one by one, light to light. When it came back to me, I said, we come from silence, but we are not silent. We come from absence, but we do not vanish. We are here, and we are real, and we are not waiting to be welcomed anymore. I'm not famous. I'm not healed completely. I still flinch sometimes when people say, let's talk about your family. But here's what I know. I built something out of the ashes. And I didn't wait for permission. If you're reading this, and you feel invisible in your own house. If your name is always left off the guest list. If you've spent years asking, what did I do wrong? Let me tell you, you didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't choose you. But now, you get to choose yourself. And that choice will rewrite everything. This isn't a happy ending. This is a beginning that's mine. This is the life I built. And no one gets to take it from me again.